Recall! Yeah, good boy. Okay, me yelling a recall command to my Doberman Arlo and having him come running right up to me once on camera is a fairly easy thing to train him to do. But training him to have a rock solid, consistent recall, even in the most distracting of environments, is a whole lot tougher. It may seem like an impossible mountain to climb to get to that point with your dog, but you know what? Even the toughest mountains can start to feel somewhat easy with enough practice and the right technique. So let's jump straight into teaching my Doberman his recall. Now the first step is to choose a recall command. Now, come could work, right? That's a natural one, but it has a tendency to be overused and kind of poisoned with too much use in a normal household. Definitely does in my house. I have little kids that yell come at my dog all the time. So you want a command that has some sort of sense of urgency attached to it that's different than you use all the time, that will make your dog perk up and really pay attention to you. And if you use a command you use every day around the house, it's not going to have that effect. You could use jackpot or here or at my side or something like that. Or you could even whistle at your dog. Now, I'd really steer you away from using a physical whistle like ones you see, coaches use or something like that, because then you're kind of attached to that whistle. You have to bring that with you anytime you want to execute a real strong recall with your dog. If you're one of those people that can do one of those super loud whistles with their mouth, that could work really well too. For me, I'm going to choose just simple, the command recall. That's going to be the command I'm going to use. It's super easy for me to remember. I don't think I'll ever forget that. My kids aren't going to use it around the house, so it's not going to get overused. And I just subscribe to the KISS idea, right? Keep it simple, stupid. That's what I subscribe to. So my command is going to be recall. Now, the next thing is to pick a visual cue of some kind. That's one of these breed-specific techniques that's really important for the Doberman. Maybe not as much for some certain other breeds, but for the Doberman, very important to have a visual cue. So I'm going to choose kind of a snap and pointing at the ground. Snap doesn't really matter. That's just natural to me, but he's not going to hear it far away. But I'm going to be pointing at the ground. So my command is going to be recall and point at the ground right in front of me. That's what I'm picking for this. Real quick, before we move on to step 2, I do just want to point out the importance of having a strong recall in your Doberman. It's extremely important. It's one of those safety things, guys. It's like the leave it command. And even people who have no desire to do off-leash activities with their dog will often still train a recall command in case their dog gets off the leash or out of their collar or something like that. So take your time with it. Don't rush it, and get your dog as close to 100% consistent with their recall command before you ever even think about relying on it in any kind of potentially dangerous situation. Okay, let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is to pick the least distracting environment possible to start training the recall command in. For me, I'm going to pick this boring room in my house. There's not a lot going on, not a lot of distractions. Distractions and leadership issues are going to be your two biggest hurdles, two biggest pitfalls that you could fall into while training recall commands. We'll talk about the leadership stuff in a minute, but you want to reduce the distractions as much as possible. This is especially important with a young Doberman. The younger they are, the more easily distracted they are with anything that you're doing with training. So for Arlo, he's 1.5 years old. He spends a lot of time in this room. I don't think it's terribly exciting to him, so I'm hoping that both these things are going to work in my favor. Now, step 3 is to build that initial familiarity with that recall command. You're now in your boring environment, so now it's time to do it. You need to call your dog. I'm not going to use the come command. I'm going to use the chosen recall command I've picked, recall, because I don't want to poison that command. I want him to associate this as a totally new command that leads to just giant jackpots when he comes to me. That's going to be way more exciting than any dog he sees out in public or any animal he sees or smell that he gets. I want him to know that when I give this command, this means that when he comes to me, he gets praised and rewarded just like crazy. And I want to build that association between the command and that reward. So I'm going to call out my command, recall. I'm going to point at the ground. When he comes, it's going to be game on for the praise. I'm going to praise and reward him for probably 20 seconds, maybe longer, and just start to build that association from that excitement of this amazing reward with that recall command. Step 4 is to up the bar with your dog, and we're going to do this by not using treats. If you saw on the previous step, I used treats to try to get him to come initially. Really anything you can do to get him to come to you in the beginning. If you need to jump around like a goof, flap your arms around, spin around in a circle, display the most attracting treats you can, whatever for the previous step, just to build that initial familiarity is fine. In this step, we're upping the bar by now incorporating unpredictable rewards with the recall. We don't always want to have a pocket full of treats with us, so we do this by providing unpredictable rewards. It's a great motivation tool for your dog. It's like unwrapping a present to them. They know it's going to be exciting when they come to you and they respond to the recall command, but they don't know what it's going to be. Maybe one time it is treats, but maybe the next time it's just crazy praise and reward where you get down low and you're petting them and you give them all types of love. Or next time you play a short game with them or pull out their favorite toy and you play that for a couple of minutes, really excited. It's got to be the most fun that they've had. So we're going to kind of put the treats away on this step and up the bar by using some unpredictable rewards. Real quick, guys, before we move on, we're getting pretty serious with this recall training stuff, and I do want to throw out this warning out there. You know, with other commands, if you move too fast through the training, the worst is that your dog develops a bad habit or just doesn't learn the command. With recall training, if you move too fast, the worst could be serious injury or death to your dog. So, especially if you have any kind of risky situation. So always practice this in a controlled environment, and it'll ultimately be your choice when, if ever, really, to practice this off leash where stakes are a little bit higher. Now, step 5 is to continue to up the bar with your dog. You're going to start practicing the recall command in more and more distracting environments. You can go out into your backyard, you can go to a dog park that's kind of fenced in and controlled, any park with maybe some chain link fencing in, or your friend's property that's fenced in. More and more distracting environments to work on that recall. Now, you want some way to ensure that your dog reacts appropriately to your recall every single time, especially with Dobermans, because they're definite habit forming dogs. So if they get in the habit of ignoring you and you let them get away with that, then that's going to become the habit they form. But that works equally strong in your favor if you get them in the habit of coming to you and reacting appropriately to the recall. So use a long lead, 30-foot lead, for example. I like to use paracord. It's very thin, it's light. They almost forget that, my dog almost forgets he's wearing it. Just make sure he doesn't get tangled up. But give the recall command. Don't allow him to ignore you. If you need to start to reel him in, you can start doing that. But remember, when he comes, big jackpot, the most exciting thing he's experienced in a while. And it'll be your choice as to when to progress into more off-leash activities with your dog, depending on how they're doing. Only progress when it's safe, and take a step back and reinforce these things in controlled environments more if you need to. Recall.
Good boy, yes, yes, yes. Good boy, Arlo. Yes, good boy, good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Yeah, good boy.
Real quick, guys, before we move on, I do want to mention the importance of being just a strong leader in your house for your Doberman. It's so important. This is one of the biggest things that causes people to fail when they're training recall in their Doberman, and then makes just off-leash activities impossible with your dog. If your dog doesn't respect you as a leader, they're going to decide whether or not to obey your recall command. It's just simple as that. So if you're having problems with that, take a look at the video. Should be popping up in the corner of your screen. I did a video all about little specific things you can do throughout the day to really reinforce your position as a leader in the household. So the best way to tell if that really is the issue, if your dog knows the command and you know the dog knows it very well and still ignores you when you're trying to give the recall command, it's almost always a leadership issue. So go check out that video. I'll also link to it down in the description down below. Now, real quick, guys, if you're starting to struggle, it's usually one of 3 things it'll take to fix it. Number 1 is consider changing the command that you've picked. It may have gotten poisoned from overuse around the house or around the dog. Number 2 is to consider a leadership change in the house and how you interact with your dog. With that video I mentioned, if you believe it's a leadership issue, that one's very common. And number 3 would be to work on reassociating the command with the huge jackpot. Maybe the dog doesn't expect those giant unpredictable jackpots every time with that recall command. So one of those 3 things is usually what it takes to get you back on track if you're struggling here. A quick safety tip, guys, if you're out and you just need your dog to come to you now and you've tried everything, you have no idea what else to try next, your dog's not coming and there's a chance that they could get hurt, try this. Try turn your back to the dog and run away from them, calling their names and flapping your arms all excited. Turning your back to a dog in canine communication is an invitation for the dog to join you. Running away appeals to the Doberman's prey drive, and 9 out of 10 times your dog's gonna come running. Now, I certainly would never rely on this. This is just a last-ditch emergency tool to keep in your back pocket if you need it. Before you take off, please take a second to check out some of the other videos on my channel. I got a lot of videos all about the Doberman breed, and if you enjoyed this, please hit the like button down below. You have no idea how much that simple action of hitting that thumbs up button really does help this channel. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon, because you never know, that video all about Dobermans that you've been waiting for, that one topic that you've been dying for me to make a video on, might be next week's video. So make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell icon, or you just might miss it. Thank you guys so much. See you next time. Recall.
Good boy, yes, yes, yes. Good boy, Arlo. Good boy.
Recall. Right.
Good boy, yes, good boy.